this or that. Who is the top edge rusher in the 2024 NFL class? Is it UCLA's Laiatu Latu? Is it Florida State's Jarrett Verse? We're going to tell you our thoughts and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. I'm your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout and a senior draft analyst. And I got to kick this intro over to my guy, 2019 national champion, Keith Sanchez with them LSU Bengal Tigers. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Keep talking to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ with those LSU Tigers. And what, man, the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, where we say, man, we talk college football, we talk NFL football, but what we see over here is that it all starts with the NFL draft, man. We talk NFL draft philosophies, NFL draft roster management. You get it all with the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. Today, DP, we talked about it at the top of the show, man. This or that, we're introducing a new segment to you guys, man. So, we're really excited for that as we get ramped them into the draft cycle, right? It's draft season. We are rolling right now, man. Then we have our traditional stock up, stock down segment. And then we're finishing off with some NFL content, man. We're going to talk about rookie spotlight, which rookies need to perform well for their NFL team to capture a W this weekend. But DP, before we get started, man, why don't you hit them with a title sponsor?
This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. A few minutes ago, I placed my very own DoorDash order to get my favorite local meal, okay? Quesadilla from Cucho's Grill and Tacos, all right? Here in the Greenville market in South Carolina. It should be here before the show is over. So a big thank you to DoorDash for lunch. Place your order today using the promo code LOCK23. Stay tuned later in the episode to hear more from our friends at DoorDash. Keith, this or that. EDGE1, Jarrett Verse, Florida State, Laiatu Latu. When I ask you, Keith, if you're drafting, right, you the GM, you the head coach, you in the war room in the drafts today, you taking this in Jarrett Verse or you taking that in Laiatu Latu?
DP, the key word that you said was today, right? So Friday, what is it? Friday, December 8th, right? The key word is today, Friday, December 8th, DP. I'm taking Jarrett Verse, and I know that's probably unpopular right now because everybody's going with Laiatu Latu, and it's been the production that he's had, and it's like, oh, well, Jarrett Verse has disappeared. But listen, man, and this is where you have confidence in the traits, right? The traits that you scout as an NFL draft analyst, right? And what you see in a player. And that's why it's so important to set those traits. So then that way, if the production is not there, you still know that this player is capable of it, right? And it's been one of those situations with Jarrett Verse. And that's why I want to address this, DP, because for most of the season, right, everybody's been hopping off of the Jarrett Verse bandwagon, right? But then he has these last 3 games, and everybody's like, oh, see, Jarrett Verse is a good edge rusher. No, he's been a good edge rusher. He's a good edge rusher last year. He's a good edge rusher this year, right? So you can't watch the one game against Louisville and now say that I'm back in on Jarrett Verse, right? That's why as a scout, you scout the traits, right? You scout the athletic ability. You scout what he can do because sometimes the production is not there. And that can be for a bevy of reasons, right? Whether that's he's getting double teamed, he's getting triple teamed, right? That's could be whether teams are running the football more against Florida State, right? There's so many more like conversation pieces to go into that, right? As far as why he's not productive. But what you've seen against that play against Louisville, explosive first step, right? He had that last year, right? Strong hands. He had that last year, DP. Then guess what? Speed to power. He had that last year. None of it went away, DP. So I wanted to address that because I've seen the shift, right? And this is no knock to Laiatu Latu, but I've seen the shift to Laiatu Latu. And I'm like, no, this shouldn't be about knocking Jarrett Verse. This should be about elevating Laiatu Latu, right? And saying that, hey, he's playing well. But for me, Jarrett Verse is still that number one guy because of what he's doing. When I watched the film both last year and this year.
No, Keith, I'm with you. So I'm taking this as well. I'm taking Jared Verse. The athletic profile is to me is superior, right? Like you talk that first step quickness, the explosive first step, but and even the numbers, right? You look at these guys, right? Jared Verse has per PFF, he has 11 total sacks on the season with 34 hurries and pressures. You look at Laiatu Latu, he has 14 with 39 hurries and pressures, 11 QB hits, and Jared Verse has 13 QB hits. Jared Verse also has a forced fumble. Laiatu Latu has 3 forced fumbles, right? So numbers wise, they're very close together. They're very, lockstep in this 100-meter dash. You know what I mean? To the finish line. But I think again, for me, when I was watching Jared Verse, I wrote down closer, right?
Yeah.
Because you look at the Florida game, late in that game, right? Just closing the game out, right? Just driving the right tackle. I'm sorry. Oh, no, it wasn't left tackle. Just speed to power, right? Getting his hands fitted inside the chest plate and driving him, putting him up. You see how, some people can drive certain cars and put them up on 2 wheels. We've seen it on movies. He had Big Boy up on 1 wheel, okay? And he drove them right into his quarterback. He did the exact same thing in the ACC championship game against Louisville, right? And you look at how his sacks, they come in bunches. That's what's so scary about him. Now, some people say, well, could he go missing for some games? No, because his hurries are consistent every game. He's a consistent pressure package type of guy. But three sacks against Louisville, 3 sacks against Florida, 3 sacks against Wake Forest, 2 sacks against Va Tech. So his sacks are run in bunches, man, but he's constantly in the backfield and constantly creating pressure. So when I look at it, and I look at Laiatu Latu, I think he's quick-handed, a guy with long arms. I think he might have the superior arm length. You know what I mean? Knows how to work the inside track very well with the long arm over and stuff like that. But I also look at Jared Verse is a multi-track rusher himself, where twists and stunts, he's bowing over not just tackles, Keith, but guards as well. You know what I mean? Bowing these guys over and driving them into the dirt, getting into the face of the quarterback, he can impact the pass rush is a multifaceted guy. And for me, that is very valuable than a guy that's like, I don't see high octane quickness, burst, or even true power, functional power from Laiatu Latu. I think he's more technically sound, I guess.
Yeah, let's I mean, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw that out there. Laiatu Latu reminds me of edge rusher from Miami, Jalen Phillips. That's who
which is a good comp. Which is a good player.
Yeah, and which is a good player, right? He just reminds me of that, right? I thought Jalen was very smooth, and then you get the same thing with Laiatu, right? And it's not necessarily. I think they're better functional athletes, right? And they apply functional strength in certain moments, right? Than they are just strictly speed to power guys or first step explosive guys. They're really good athlete plus the length, and they're going to be able to get home. So I think with either guy, and Jalen Phillips was probably having the best season of his career before he tore his Achilles down there. I think they were playing the Jets that week. So I like Laiatu Latu a lot, DP. I have to be honest. It was just more so the Jared Verse conversation, right? Because I'll tell you, we were here, right? Week 6, week 7 of the college football season. It was we're out on Jared Verse, right? Then the guy activates and shows you what he can do. And that's why we always say, man, production, you can't necessarily allow that just to tell the full picture, because you can be fooled with a lot of production and you can be fooled with no production at all, right? It doesn't necessarily translate to what that player is capable of doing, depending on what they're asked to do in a certain scheme, in a certain situation.
Keith, production is like money. You can't take money with you when you die. You can't take money to the grave, okay?
Yep.
Can't take production to the NFL. Okay, it's just simple as that. Only certain thing, the body and the skill set will travel to the NFL. Those stats will stay in college, Keith. But for another quick discussion of this or that, wide receiver Xavier Legette versus wide receiver Troy Franklin, 2 6'3" explosive vertical threats, Keith.
Well, DP, you know what? This conversation is going so well, right? I don't even want to rush this conversation. Let's not even rush this conversation. So this is what we're about to do, right? We're about to transition, and then we're going to pick that conversation up of wide receiver, South Carolina wide receiver Xavier Legette versus Oregon wide receiver Troy Franklin, and this or that segment. So, man, make sure y'all stay tuned, because that's coming up next.
When the game clock stops, that means it's time to order in on DoorDash. Guys, I live in the Greenville County area of South Carolina, and I just ordered and received my lunch from Cucho's Taco and Grill. I can't wait. When this episode is over, I'm going to devour this quesadilla that I ordered with the cheese sauce and tortilla chips. But guys, listen, you can have this ordered and dropped and delivered right at your front door on game day, today, tomorrow. It does not matter, okay? But not only that, guys, I'm telling you, DoorDash is really helpful, and we can help you with DoorDash. How? By getting and giving you 50% off a $10 up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCK23. Okay, all you gotta do is get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code LOCK23. Continue this conversation. Xavier Legette, listed at 6'3", 230. Troy Franklin, 6'3", 187. So height similar, body types completely different. Both guys are vertical, explosive threats, Keith. When you turn on the tape and you've watched them both, this or that, Legette, Franklin.
Maybe not the biggest name, right? But I'm rolling with South Carolina wide receiver Xavier Legette, and I've just seen more from him, right? In verse in all aspects of the game. When you're talking about his release packages, right? The ability to beat off coverage, be press man, his ability to press vertical. I think Troy may have a step on him in speed, right? But we're still talking about two elite speed guys. But then when you also add in that element of being 220 pounds, right? And just simply being able to body guys. And when I look at wide receiver ones, DP, because we're both projecting, let's put this in context. We're not projecting if either one of these guys are good or this or that from the perspective of good. We're talking this or that wide receiver one, right? Like your top wide receiver. So when I project that, and then what I look at in wide receiver ones, DP, I look at, can you simply when on those gotta have it downs, right? When it's third and 6, 3rd and 8, right? Can you do the simple things? And I'm not talking about I have to put you in motion, I have to put you in stack alignment, I have to, draw up these different double moves for you and all these depending on leverage plays. No, I think about those wide receivers where it's 3rd and 8 and is press man, you're on the backside of the offense, and I could just simply throw a quick slant and let's move the chains, right? Or I could throw a curl right or a hitch, right? And it's move the chains because you're going to get open, you're going to play through physicality, you're going to give me enough separation, you're going to come down with the football, and we move the chains, right? Because how many times do we see that in the NFL, right? Well, like it's just those simple money downs where it's just boom, boom, right? Everybody in the stadium, right? Everybody in the stadium, everybody watching on ESPN, Fox, CBS, wherever, they all know where the football is going, and we just can't do nothing about it. Like that's a wide receiver one to me. And I think that's the upside that Xavier Legette possesses because of the physicality that he also plays with. Troy Franklin, I believe you mentioned it on the podcast, DP. You talked about Jalen Hyatt. I talked about potentially Devontae Smith. I'm kind of backing off of the Devontae Smith.
I got another one, DJ Chark.
Yeah, DJ Chark. I almost like that one the best, DP. And with Troy Franklin, there is a role for him, right? Like, and there's a role where he can excel and he can do really well, right? But it's just like we said, this or that, right? If you had to just choose one or the other, we're gonna choose that one, and that's what I'm going with. I'm going with wide receiver Xavier Legette.
Yeah, you know me, man. I'm rolling with my guy X, man, and it's for a lot of reasons you put out there, Keith. When I look at wide receivers, I'm like, okay, like you talked about, how can you win, and what type of ways can you win by yourself without having to be moved around and all that type of stuff? And there's limitations and flaws to Troy Franklin's game that I don't see really improving at the next level. Well, a lot of people are going to say, well, DP, you look at Xavier Legette, his release package is a little unrefined. Well, guys, that is true, and there's a reason for that. He was a high school senior quarterback. He's a quarterback converted to wide receiver. So he didn't even play his high school year as an actual wide receiver. So he's still learning this position. And then he dealt with injuries a little bit, early on. They were trying to kind of working him into the offense slowly and everything. And of course, but before Spencer Rattler got there was inept quarterback play at South Carolina. You know, I live here. I know. I've seen it on TV. So, you know, it's a lot of those things. I just call that context. Got to put that into context. When I look at these two guys, right? You talk about a guy to have it, Keith. I want a guy that can play above the rim as well, right? It's not enough to just be fast and okay, you can get open, but can't when I throw the ball to you, you know, now we're seeing it in the NFL nowadays. Guys, man, my receiver's down there somewhere, and they're just chucking it 40 yards down the field. Yeah. Go make a play for me, bro. But when I look at that, I don't see that with Troy. Troy is one of those guys who he's tracking the ball and he's just letting it drop into his hands, right? Mm-hmm. Where Xavier is a guy that I'm expecting Xavier to jump 40, if not 40 plus. Like he can get up there. So he leaps, he levitates in the air and he attacks it at his highest point. And talking about that was one of the things people really went at QJ Quentin Johnston about, that he didn't always use that 6'2", 6'3" frame and extend the arms, right? Xavier Legette does that. Go back to the Florida game. I think it was a 40-yard post pattern, right? He wins the inside leverage one-on-one, and he off of 1 foot just elevates, right? Doesn't even give the DB a shot at that, right? Troy Franklin will give your DB a shot, and you think about Jalen Ramsey being on that backside hip. He's not trying to play through the backside of your hands. He's gonna try to undercut that in the air and take the ball from you. So that's kind of the thing I look at, and then of course just the inability to play through contact.
So, DP, can I ask you to put this in a different context, right? And I'm gonna ask you this question: is he a great number 2 in your eyes when you talk about Troy Franklin?
He could be a really good number 2 depending on the situation, right? And I preface it where if I can get him with a big arm quarterback, get him with a number 1 wide receiver, a la Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, you know, put him opposite of Rashee Rice, who we talked about earlier this week with the Kansas City Chiefs, and Pat Mahomes, or even in Baltimore, you got Lamar Jackson, Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman. I think he could be a really strong number 2. I just don't view him as a number 1. Because of those flaws, the different things that I don't foresee getting better in the NFL with Troy.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. And look, we're going to continue to dive into this, right? Because we know there's going to be checkpoints like we talked about, right? It's going to be the NFL Combine. It's going to be, pro days, right? It's going to consistently be statistical stuff where numbers are going to come out, right? And we're going to have to talk about it, and we're going to have these fun conversations, man. And guess what, man? It's this or that segment. I'm going to go ahead and say it, DP. It's here to stay, right? It is here to stay. We rocking this thing out for the next 3-4 months throughout the draft season, man. And we're going to throw quarterbacks in it, right? You may get a Jaden Daniels versus, I don't know, Bo Nix conversation, right? A Michael Penix versus Quinn Ewers conversation, right? Caleb Williams versus Drake May, this or that. So we're going to have these fun, in-depth conversations with DP. Real quick, man, because we're supposed to do the stock up, stock down. We got carried away with this or that. And that's okay. That's okay. That's right. But I want to highlight one guy, man, when we talk about stock up. Texas interior defensive lineman Byron Murphy, listed at 6'1", 300 pounds. I like Byron Murphy a lot. I think he just won Big 12 Defensive Lineman of the Year, I believe, and I thought it was well deserving. This is a guy that has first step explosiveness, very active hands, DP, very strong hands, functional strength. This is a guy that, to say he's 6'1", 300 pounds, right? I don't love him taking on double teams, but if he's taking, if it's single blocks, right? The guy has enough power to lock, peak, shed, right? He's disruptive. He can quickly get in the gaps. He can, he can penetrate run plays backside, right? He's an extremely active player. And I think I would say this, DP, I do think he's scheme specific. I love him as a 4-3 defensive tackle. I think that he could have potentially had more production had it not been for the defense that Texas runs, and where he had sometimes it's an odd front and sometimes it's an even front, right? Yeah. And if Kalijah Kancey went that early, I think this is a guy we have to start having a discussion about for being a potential top 50, top 60 player, because I see some of the same things.
Keith, I love that, and I really gotta get eyes on him, because we talked about him on one of our meetings, and you really talked him up, and I'm glad that you brought it to the pod so that the family can hear about this guy and teams. Right now, defensive line, the trenches, You can never have you can never have enough help in the trenches, Keith. For me, I'm going to the secondary. Washington cornerback Jabar Muhammad, right? And you look at what he did last weekend against Oregon. 39 coverage snaps, Keith. He was targeted one time, and that was against Troy Franklin. He had a pass breakup. This young man plays with instinct, patience, technique. You know what I mean? He's got that dog. I mean, he's a husky, right? But no pun intended. He really does have that dog in him. He plays with the swag you want from a defensive back, from a cornerback. He's fearless. He's physical. He's aggressive, but he's also patient and poised in this process to where, you know what? Like I think the one target he had, it was a quick slant that they tried to run to Troy. Troy tried the kind of walk, skip release, and break inside. He stayed square, quick little chop steps, broke on him inside the hip or hip to hip, and then punched through the pocket, punched through the catch, the catch point, man. I think this is a young man that also gives you inside outside versatility. And he reminds me of a little bit, Keith, Trent McDuffie, which is low hanging fruit because he went to the same school.
It's so funny that you said that because I was just about to go on a quick rant. And this rant is throw the measurables out, right? There's some players where you just simply throw the measurables out. And I'm sitting there thinking of those type of players, right? And Trent McDuffie came to my mind of recently. Cam Taylor-Britt, right? A guy that's 5'11", maybe 5'10" and 3/4.
EJ Turner.
Right? Yeah, playing high level football. So he was just one of those guys. I was like, you know what? He may be one of those players where people may potentially overanalyze. Keitrell Clark, right, for the Arizona Cardinals, out of Louisville. Another guy like when you watch those guys and they play with swagger, they play with a passion for the game. Like they're instinctual. They have ball skills. You throw the measurables out, right? Like I'm like, this guy can play football. I'm just gonna put him on the field and let him play football, DP. So I like that you're bringing up Jabar Muhammad as we're going through this conversation. Like we say, this cornerback race is still wide open. I don't think things are going to get solved completely, right, until after the NFL Combine, because people are going to have to get tested. They're going to have to get measured, right? I don't think it's going to get solved after the Combine. But DP, let's keep this thing going, man. Let's keep it flowing. We have the rookie spotlight. Like we said, your NFL team needs to perform well. They depended on rookies. We're going to talk about it. So coming up next, man, in the next segment is the rookie spotlight.
Today's episode of Locked On NFL Draft has been brought to you by Prize Picks. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players, right, from different sports and or leagues. For example, Steph Curry plus Devontae Adams at a 12.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus receptions. Do you want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and or comedian Andrew Schultz? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Pick community each and every week. This Sunday on Prize Picks, I am taking Lamar Jackson versus the Los Angeles Rams for over 202.5 passing yards. So, guys, all you need to do to get on the action is simple. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. The rookie spotlight for me, guys, is shining on rookie wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks, Jaxson, Smith-Njigba, coming off a good game against Dallas, last Thursday. 11 targets, 7 receptions, 62 yards. Good game. He didn't have a touchdown or anything, but a consistent workflow, right? And that was in the game where the Seattle Seahawks offense was humming. I don't think they punted all game. They scored 35 points in that. Yeah, they scored 35, but Dak Prescott was able to score 41. So it's like, having him going against a team right now, and this is why I think for me, Jaxson Smith-Njigba is important, guys. Chase Young, Nick Bosa, this edge rush for the San Francisco 49ers is ferocious, right? We saw it against the Philadelphia Eagles, collapsing the pocket from the outside and then also getting interior pressure. You know how you kind of counteract that, guys? You know it. Get the ball out quickly, right? And Jaxson Smith-Njigba can be a quick slant, in-breaker, mesh concept type of guy. Also, option routes. And he's a guy that gives you yards after the catch as well. Get the ball into his hands. I don't want to see Geno back there trying to trying to test how they did the first game. Get the deep ball going, right? Now, granted, Geno was not accurate a lot in that game because DK Metcalf did win versus Travarius Ward at times. But I don't want to see you trying to get the ball down the field with that pass rush geared up to get back to you. Let's get the ball out of their hands. Let's make them think a little bit, some quick screens, stuff like that. Let's kind of feed, Jaxson Smith-Njigba, because I think he can have a big game, work in the middle of the field, getting the yards underneath, and then be able to create after the catch. So for my rookie spotlight, I'm looking at rookie wide receiver, first-round wide receiver, Jaxson Smith-Njigba for the Seattle Seahawks.
I like that, DP. You know what I'm going to do, man? I went back and forth with this, right? Who I'm going to pick as my rookie spotlight, guys. DP, I'm not shying away from the big lights. I'm a big light type of guy, DP. I'm going to the Sunday night showdown. The Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys, man, and I'm picking the two big boys, right? The Philadelphia Eagles used one of their first-round picks to draft a defensive tackle, Jalen Carter. The Dallas Cowboys used their first-round pick to draft a big boy, a defensive tackle, Mozzie Smith, right? Which one of these guys are going to show up, man? Because I look at it, and it's just becoming a situation where styles make fights, but I think their offensive philosophies are similar in what they want to do, in the sense of the fact of neither team really wants to be one-dimensional, right? Like, or they're comfortable being one-dimensional. I think if the Cowboys, feel like, man, we got to drop back and throw it 40, 50 times a game, and the Eagles got to put their head back and we have to hit on all cylinders, that's not what they want to do. Neither do I think the Philadelphia Eagles want to do that either, right? So I look at both of these interior defensive linemen, both rookies, man. Who's going to show up, right? Because it's going to come down to making a big play, and it's going to be a grown man game. Listen, you may not have the stats, right, but eating those double teams up, right? The first and 10, the run up the gut, and then you're stopping it for a second and 10. That's just as good as a sack, because you're putting either one of these explosive offenses behind the chain. So there's going to be a grown man game. You're talking about two pretty solid offensive lines, right? Especially Mozzie Smith. You're going to get a good offensive line with the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the better ones you're playing against. You got Kelsey, right? You got some of these other interior offensive linemen that's just rolling right now. So I'm going to the interior defense line. I think they're going to make all the difference, especially Mozzie Smith, because Micah Parsons, and especially coming off of that Seahawks game, right? You see Micah Parsons, I'm sorry, he just can't do it himself, right? Like point blank period, is just not enough for him to do it himself. So need somebody else in that front seven, particularly the interior defensive line, to just kind of take away the trenches and make that team one-dimensional.
No, and I like that, Keith, because both of those guys will end up facing good interior offensive linemen. Mozzie Smith will be able to see Landon Dickerson and Jason Kelsey, right? Where you see, and similar to the first matchup, Jalen Carter versus Tyler Smith, right? You know what I mean? At the guard spot, those two battled in that game. If you like offensive defensive line battles, man, go back and watch that, but also watch it this Sunday night, because it's going to be a big time game. So I like mentioning those two young defensive tackles, Keith, because they can absolutely have, you talking about X factor impact on who wins and loses this game in a must-win type of game too.
A must-win. This is about making the quarterbacks uncomfortable, and then also, the 49ers steamrolled the both of them, right? So they're both kind of trying to figure out who are we, right, when it comes to being the upper echelon of the NFC. But DP, we know one thing. The upper echelon of this NFL draft, that is the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, man, with your boys, man, the dynamic duo over here, man. Listen, if you haven't hit the like button, go ahead hit the like button, man. If you haven't commented and you have something to say, go ahead and say it. Comment, man. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because we are bringing top-notch NFL content each and every single day, 24/7, 365. That's just what we do, man. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That is DP. Damian Parson, the running back guru himself, man. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we always say, man, y'all talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. It is Friday. Have a happy Friday. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the weekend. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow or Monday on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.